You know, I know a lot of you are going through the very same things that I'm going through right now. Just hold your head up. Okay, Luca, Daddy loves you. I'm on my way. Okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. All I know is pain, all I know is sorrow. Look into these eyes and you see that they be hollow. No future for tomorrow, I will beg or borrow. Whatever it takes, whoever's bones I have to break. Even if I have to take fate into my own hands to make sure that we're reunited once again. Come on, sing it with me now, sing it with me now. Yeah. Hold on, okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. If I could have one wish, and that wish would be my kids. We'd be out doing shit that all the other families did. Taking you to practice, Luca to gymnastics. Watch your first backflip, that's the shit that I miss. Tell me what did I do, they don't deserve this. Tell me what's the purpose, to reverse this curse which social services has placed upon us. Yeah. Hold on, okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, okay, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. I don't always do what's right, but I do what's needed. I'm the father's right champion, I can't be defeated. Without you in my life, kids, I feel incompleted. The courts are so blind, but I'ma make them see it. You gotta believe it, his daddy loves you both. I just want you to know that. Even though it seems hopeless, don't give up hope yet. Come on, sing it with me now, sing it with me now, yeah. Hold on, Makai, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Makai, buddy, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control. Hold on, Luca, honey, don't let go. Daddy's on his way and I'm in control.
Hold on, baby, Daddy's on his way. You gotta hold on, baby, Daddy's on his way. And I'm trying so hard, fighting so hard, trying and I'm fighting for you. And I won't ever leave you, Daddy's coming home, fighting so hard for you. And I can't breathe without you, or dream without you, sleep without you. I can't breathe without you, dream without you, sleep without you.
Hi, everyone. That is Philly's original music by Philly Slim. That is Hold On, featuring Bridget Lee. And welcome to the Porthole to Justice. I am your host, Amelia Duran. It is August 12th, 2018. And, oh, yes, and Philly Slim is a father's rights advocate in the Porthole to Justice, and he advocates for shared parenting, and you can check him out in the Porthole to Justice exclusively on Facebook. Okay, I've got a great show lined up. I've got a special guest. We're going to go over some of the latest stories, convictions, and indictments in the Porthole to Justice today. We want to try and stick with content that can be sourced, real, not not anonymous, anonymous content. We want to stick with what's going on, and also have opinions about some of these topics and controversies going on regarding the corruption in the Child Protective Services. Hello, welcome to the Porthole to Justice. You are live.
Thank you.
So we're going to be going over some of the conviction and indictments in the Porthole to Justice, and then we're going to have some opinions on some of the things that are occurring within Child Protective Services, some of the corruption regarding. I want to get into, the medicating of these children and some of the, RAD, which you had discussed, which is reactive attachment disorder. So there's like two parts to this.
Yes, I'm following.
So
go ahead.
Should I introduce you, or would you?
Sure, Danny McGowen. Just an advocate, online advocate, exposing what's going on, fighting for the children, fighting to keep families together, showing where the largest amount of abuse is occurring by the government, and that it's a feeding frenzy for failure, for prisons, homelessness. This is the foster care industry I'm talking about, and how it's the separation of families, the trauma, the alienation, the brainwashing, the drugging, the post-traumatic stress, how it just breeds an industry that beyond anything we can imagine if you look at it and you follow it, how broad it is and how many people it employs and how it's used to keep our society in a failure mode as opposed to a prosperous, cohesive network of society where it keeps everything dysfunctional. And the types of people that it breeds the most vicious, vile, ruthless people, because they haven't bonded with their parents. They've been separated. They've been to foster home, or just the fact that a child has been physically abused, mentally abused, sexually abused. It's something we can never really fathom how it harms the growth of a child anywhere from birth to adulthood. So that's the goal, is to expose those issues, how broad it is, how much of an industry it is, where the funding's coming from to do this, and that it's unlimited and there's no accountability. And it's the foster war is what we started, and we're asking in that if there's no criminal charges, you cannot remove children from parents. Because once they're removed, they're 10 times more likely to be abused. And the abuse that we're seeing and documenting and tracking is the most heinous. It's beyond anything we can imagine. It's just the tip of the iceberg in what we see. We know it could be 10, 20 times worse than what we're seeing, because these people are getting away with crimes. We're talking about strangers. We're talking about abuse by these strangers in these foster homes. The drugging of them, the claims that they're missing, how easy it is to erase a child or a youth off the public record, and eliminate them. We're seeing foster parents burn the house down with the foster kid and start a GoFundMe. We're seeing the father and son rape a 12-year-old that's been with them 6 months and throw her in the river. And then talk at the dinner table without any remorse how they're going to cover it up. We're just seeing this only happens because you're separating families, and a lot of it comes down to poverty and how poverty is being induced into our society like never before. And there's a lot of people hurting out there. just to pay the bills because of inflation, and how CPS is right there to gobble them up into this system of failure. Homelessness.
I'm sorry, can I
Sure.
interject? Once they're in the systems, in these placements, things quickly tend to eventually fall apart for these children. And, obviously they're suffering a trauma, but they have a lot of labels like ADHD and RAD, which is radical detachment disorder. And they all just seem to be, in my opinion, and it's a humble opinion, but they seem to be subtle. There's subtle propaganda labeling by psychiatrists and psychologists at work here to medicate these children. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Of course, the labeling, that's ultimately a lot of it, that once they label these kids, that label can follow them the rest of their life and affect their families in the future, and can be used against them in courts that they've already been diagnosed or labeled in the system as having these disorders that are disorders from being taken away from family and alienation and the trauma that comes from that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and the trouble is that it really is their worldwide propaganda that, for all intents and purposes on the surface, it looks like it's well-meaning. However, the long-term effects on these children and the heavy drugging from a very early age, these children are afflicted possibly for the rest of their lives for
lab ratted. They're guinea pigs. They're lab ratted. This is very heinous, cold, and calculated by pharmaceutical industry, by the deep state government, by the federal funding system. These drugs aren't meant for children. They drugging them down to age 4, but none of these psychotropics, everything in the psychotropic industry, from what I understand, is experimental. It's all just, give them this and see how they react. And there is an ultimate goal to keep them addicted, to keep them on the drugs, because any part of failure, the system's there to profit from them or exploit them, whether it be a lawyer, a judge, a cop, a prison. The whole entire industrial war on families apparatus and how big it is, it's there to gobble them up, and drugs is a good way to do that, causing suicides. We're understanding.
There's also a darker agenda at play. A lot of my listeners that know and follow the show, they know about the child trafficking and the drugging of the children. A lot of which oftentimes are placed with pedophiles, known registered pedophiles. The over drugging, it tends to be more alarming when you realize that reality as well.
This causing permanent brain damage is their ultimate goal. A dull person the rest of their life, and whatever that breeds, it can breed a monster, that wants to kill people. It causes more problems. It's just a failure created system that's fully funded and sanctioned, and right there at your doorstep to gobble you into that failure matrix from all angles. Mm-hmm. Homelessness, incarceration, the drugging, the fact that you're more likely to commit a crime, harm somebody else. So basically the whole industry is designed to induce poverty to create failure, and then the system's there to gobble them up and shoot them out. And it's just a regurgitating system, because those same failed children will have children, and the cycle can continue, and they can further erode our rights, because we understand there's 70% of children I'm sorry, 70% of prisoners are from foster care. I just find that way out there. I mean, it could be true.
Actually, that's conservative number, if you ask me, because they often round it off to the lowest figure. I think it's more like 80% now. 80%
Sure.
that are becoming more vulnerable to human trafficking as a result of being in foster care. And then, there's also the, the pipeline to prison, Child Protective Services pipeline to prison track that is documented online.
Exactly. And also the sex trafficking, they say 60%. We actually feel it's as high as 80% of any child in a sex trafficking ring has been through foster care or from foster care. So we know that those numbers are distorted. We heard the Attorney General Kamala in California say it was 60%. But when they're not always going to tell the truth, and they are going to skew numbers. But even at 60, as high as 80,
well, it's actually listed on Google as being 80% as of this year.
Pipeline to prison. That's great. You brought that up. We have the Montana case just broke last week, about 5 days ago. The corrections officer with 4 adopted kids, they purchased cardboard boxes the size of a small jail cell and put 4 kids in them, ages 4 to 12. And they screwed them shut with screws. And the police showed up and finally got entry. And as they were gaining entry, there's the correctional woman she worked at a prison, unscrewing the boxes to let the kids out. $500,000 bail each. She had purchased through the corrections department jumpsuits for the kids. She had filed for an incorporation nonprofit, RADDLE, R-A-D-D-L-E, a version of RAD, reactive attachment disorder. Purely, actually lab ratting these kids in her home as a adoptive, but we want to classify adopted as foster because that's just more of a black market, but ultimately they're foster kids first. They try to say adopted, new name, it's a whole new thing. Basically they're still not bio kids and they're foster kids, so we want to try to keep them together and classify them as foster because adoption just gives them a black market identity and no tracking for these kinds of cases to happen. And that is the caging of kids, the experiment. It shows you the length, the depravity of these government agents that are doing this, purchasing jumpsuits, orange and gray. You can find that at Dr. Phil Exposed CPS. The founding of a nonprofit for this disorder, the actual placing of these kids in these containers and screwing them shut with no light, nothing. My guess is they're about 4 by 8 maybe thick cardboard boxes, but the doorways were screwed with actual wood and screws. They're claiming that the children were using the restroom in the vents and it reeked of urine. But this wouldn't happen if there's monitoring. We want monitoring. We want families to be kept together. But when they're not, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, and that's adoption. A lot of things go on in adoption that we don't see. We see the tip of the iceberg mostly in foster, but when you get to adoption, we never really know if they're adopted many times when these crimes are happening out there. And the most dangerous environments are with strangers, and that's where all these cold, calculated, the most heinous crimes against babies, infants is happening, and it's not a one-time occurrence. The abuse that they're committing against infants and children is happening every single day.
Yeah, I think rehoming children should be an absolute last resort. And I think you and I agree that there should be criminal charges. But the optimal goal should be to heal the entire family unit when there is trauma, addictions, things of that nature. Unless there's, life-threatening circumstances. Traumatizing a child has devastating effects that are lifelong, and it's becoming a crisis in our society. As a whole, we are having to deal with these children, and a lot of them are traumatized, fragmented, and as a result, they're coming at, they're medicating at an alarming rate. So
we're having,
obviously,
yes,
we have an epidemic of drug abuse.
A lot of it, the pharmaceuticals are behind this. The deep state's running the pharmos. They're inducing all those drugs that people are becoming addicted to, and getting them out there and creating that opioid-based epidemic with those drugs that they're putting out there. And how do you get a grip on that? How do you basically, you just need to. The war on drugs is a war on the family unit, and it's been disguised. They say it's a war on. No, it's a war on children and families. We have to classify this drug war as a health issue, treat it as a health issue, and give people a chance to stay together with their kids unless there's something life-threatening, to rehab and monitor and support. And a lot of drug use comes from failure, depression. I mean, you whether you've grown up post-traumatic stress, you're living in a rural area, there's no money, you have children, there's no food. It's very easy to get caught in that drowning pool of despair and depressed and use drugs. And a lot of the drugs out there nowadays, they appear to be causing more brain damage, permanent brain damage. I'm thinking like the ecstasy or these raves that they go to, and how it fogs the brain. You lose your memory.
The brain is developing during the brain doesn't become fully the maturation process, and the brain doesn't become fully developed until I think the age of 25. So until that time, you're creating new neural pathways, you're developing, you're maturing, you're still growing, you're still learning. And it's devastating.
Yes. So like maybe the MDMA, the raves, the promotion of this ecstasy and that whole cultural creation. I mean, they're being created ultimately and promoted by this, by the agendas. This, the whole fad, whether it be hip hop, whether it be rave parties, it's all for just feeding the lifestyle, and it's like a hippie thing. But we know the government's been.
So
go ahead.
I just want to get back to this case that we were discussing. I was looking over the article a little bit, and I think what's really disturbing is the prison jumpsuits, the little kid for little kids. Did you see that?
Of course. We have photographs of those actual jumpsuits. They were brand new, but she was formulating a little miniature, a miniature prison. She worked at a prison. Of course, yes, that it's full circle. we've been calling foster care foster prison for about 5-6 years now. I think I'm one of the first to pioneer or coin that phrase, that it's a prison related system. And somebody actually sent me the pictures of those jumpsuits and said, you came to mind when I seen this. And we're full circle now. Things need to change. There needs to be new laws changed. This should never happen again. And it's through monitoring, and it's through keeping families together. But if they are adopted, they need to be monitored. We've had families collecting $170,000 on the Bryant brothers that they didn't have for 10 years. And all they get charged with is fraud. But the kids are gone. They have no murder case. They have the kids are just gone for 10 years, missing they were about 7 years apiece. You can find that online. Just type Bryant Brothers, fraud, 170,000. But yeah, so this shouldn't happen again. There should be, the director should come out. We're going to change it. We're going to now monitor them all. But they don't want to do this. And it just shows how complicit they are to keep the system as it is, and it's business as usual, and to understand that it's all a business. It's a numbers game. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I saw those little jumpsuits and my heart it just sunk. It's a reality that this conditioning that's going on, and it just seems like every day we're seeing more and more of the human trafficking and the contrived poverty and oppression, and basically enslavement of humanity. And then, there's a double set of laws for the affluent or more wealthy that have excluded themselves from this tyranny and oppression.
Sure, the trafficking, the human trafficking, the enslavement, it's run by the banks, the controllers of the monetary supply, how they induce poverty, how that's always been their weapon of choice, and that nothing in society needs to be like it is. We don't need to have any homeless. We don't need to have anything like it is, but it's just a commodity. It's a market. And if people could just see the big picture and how we are enslaved, debt slaves. If you owe money, you're a debt slave, and they can enslave you through debt. They can enslave you through prison. But that nothing needs to be like that, and it's all who controls the ultimate monetary supply. They're ultimately the perpetrators, because as you research, there's books on this, that poverty is at the core of all of societal failures, and that's where it stems from. It's the tree. And Kennedy was going to get rid of the monetary supply with a federally controlled, privately incorporated, claimed to be federal monetary supply. He was going to get rid of it. And that's pretty much why he died. He wasn't going to go with the program, and he warned everybody. And you have to leave a trail when you know your life's in danger. All you can do is leave a trail and tell everyone. And that's basically what he was doing before he died.
Wow. I just, it's like I said, it's shocking that this is becoming a reality, and that we're now seeing more and more of these stories with placements in the child protective systems, integrating this. How do I say this? Like the prison mentality, really quite, the indoctrination and the programming, it's something that our generation really has to speak to, because we see it, much more clearly. And it's basically, we see kids like Antifa, terrorizing the people, and it's just really manifesting.
Yeah, there's a lot more content now. We are seeing more. The groups are big. The Foster War has about 90,000 members in about 8 Facebook groups, which the content is getting out there. So we're seeing we're showcasing these crimes like they've never been showcased before, and we feel that, and the Foster Board feels that that's what will ultimately break the camel's back. In some way, it has to. I mean, because of the crimes, to evidence how much of it is, and that's the ultimate goal, is to really put that out there and track all of these cases, track all of the perpetrators, judges, lawyers, social workers, foster care givers, doctors. When you ultimately track all of these people, that's when you really get results, and it makes them second guess everything they do. And that's what we want. We want them to not be comfortable, to look over their shoulder, to think twice before they commit that next perjury case, that next tampering with evidence, that next fabrication, that next ridiculous court ruling, that there are people watching and networking and connecting the dots, and it can come back to haunt you, and that the industry is so dirty. Why would anybody want to be involved in it? And so we're warning foster parents to release the children back to wherever they got them, unless there's criminal charges on the parents. You don't harbor children. You don't hold them hostage for money. You don't accept bribes from the county to do what you're doing, and put a smiley face that you're doing something good, because all of our evidence, like Lawrence Espinoza mentioned, he said he feels like we're at a turning point where we don't have to prove our case no more. And I think that's true. We don't have to prove our case no more. The evidence is out there. The people are out there. We're talking about it like never before. And that's a good thing. Because earlier, even as close as 5-6 years ago, you said kidnapping, government, oh yeah, sure, right, but we're seeing it. It's an epidemic. People are talking about it, sharing it, profiling it, and it's everywhere. And anyone can bury their head and say, well, they're just bad parents. But we're seeing that it's beyond that. We're seeing with the right to lie case, lawyers fighting for CPS, that social workers were unaware that it's not right to present false.
That's the freaking Hardwick case, and you can look that up on YouTube. There's some live footage, and also you can look up the case obviously on Justia.com, and it's Vreeken versus Hardwick.
Yes, Vreeken, Vreeken versus Hardwick. The mother received about $10 million because she won about $4 million, and then they fought it for another 4 or 5 years. So it went up to about $10 million before she got her money. The daughter is 18 now, and she's suing them. Is the case in the Supreme Court? Are they taking it to a higher court? Did you follow that?
I thought I had heard that they were, but I haven't heard anything as of recent.
Yeah, me neither. Kathleen Arthur did a video.
Speaking of her, I was just thinking of Kathleen Arthur. I've had her on the show. Prior, and they had sent me a really lovely sweatshirt for the I can't think of the Family Preservation Act. And I've had her on the show several times, and I need to get in touch with her and have her on again.
Yes, she was stating that in her video that this is in 2016, so it's been a while now, like 2 years ago, but that it may go to the Supreme Court. That's what she was saying, but we haven't had any reviews. I haven't heard any reviews on the status if they're taking it from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to another higher court.
Yeah. Her and Paula Flo. I know Paula Flo is also a children's activist in the Porthole to Justice, and I know they had both worked really hard on that bill. I need to catch up with them and find out what the status is.
Yes, of course we do. Again, while the judges in the Ninth Circuit, when they rejected Orange County's claim, it's mind-boggling. He used the term mind-boggling, that they would not be aware that they're not allowed to commit perjury or present false evidence to take somebody's kid. The judges are quoted as saying that. So we're finding how ruthless these lawyers are, how likely they've already paid the mother. It should be a no-brainer to pay the daughter without trying to fight it when you've already lost, when they already know that the social workers committed fraud and perjury, fabricated to take Hardwick's daughters from her. But it shows that how ruthless, conniving, ridiculous, literally ridiculous, the lawyers are in their mindset. So maybe there's an agenda here to push it to the Supreme Court, or it's one or the other. It's either an agenda to push it to the Supreme Court, maybe we can get it there, but even if we lose, all these lawyer firms are still going to get, maybe, I'm guessing $250,000 just for fighting the case. So a lot of that the litigation and the resistance to settle with the daughter, it could be based on lawyers just wanting to make money off of just litigating it. Well, we're going to fight it. Why wouldn't we have an opportunity to fight it? We could make $250,000 just fighting it for 5 years, and why not? I don't know. So, but it just shows how reckless.
We're growing, and the awareness is definitely growing. And I know that, you run some of the major platforms. Are you there? Hello, are you there?
Sorry, I had a call from in. Yes, you said that you were growing?
No, you run some of the major platforms, and I just thought you might want to share some of the names in our network. And I know that we're at like 80,000 now. I can't even believe it.
Yes, it's exciting. It shows a force. We all need to work together. We all need to hold hands together. We all need to really focus on one major issue, and I think the biggest one is the lack of criminal charges and placing it in the kangaroo civil court where there's no due process. If we can force them to hold everything in a criminal court, the whole charade crumbles. 97% of parents are not charged with crimes, and children are stolen. So if we can focus on that, we can focus on other things later, but this is going to make the biggest dent in the system, is to get it out of civil court, treat child abuse, neglect as criminal matter, and unless there's visual signs of abuse or neglect severe enough to cause great injury or damage like it's supposed to be, you can't take the kids. But get it into the criminal. When you mention platforms, Dr. Phil exposed CPS, attorneys that fight and sue Child Protective Service, Children Be Safe. Basically, you can hashtag
cameras in the court,
Facebook, and you can bring up the groups of the Foster War Network. Yes. And
there's cameras in the court. There's Dr. Phil exposed CPS. There's Porthole to Justice. There's Mama Bear Justice. A lot of these groups have active advocates that can, help you navigate the court process. We don't really give legal advice. However, there's some really good, solid advice in the Porthole to Justice, the pinned post. You can check that out, and it's a lot of what I used when I went through my own case. So
Yes, we're on the front lines. We are the front line. There's no time to waste. We need immediate remedy, immediate relief. We need an executive order. We may not get one, but we can put enough pressure on the foster care industry that these people need to get out of it, that they are the ultimate revolving door gateway to the child trafficking pedophile ring that CPS is, that even if they're smiling and, hey, we're good foster parents, no, you can't be. You're part of an apparatus. And it's people like you that allow the whole system to keep going, because we wouldn't mind foster parents or adopters if they're in, if they really need to be used. But like I said, I feel 90% don't need to be in there, and the monies need to be spent to keep families together. And it's just too dangerous, nightmare. We just can't imagine what they're doing to the kids. I mean, we have pediatrician nurses, foster parents, raping babies the first day they arrive and videotaping it and sharing it with some guy in Maryland. We have pedo rings in Arizona. Every
rings and campsites. And most recently and disturbingly, this one where there was naked children recovered and one dead child. And, it for all intents and purposes, it's really obvious. They can't deny their involvement and complicity. And, it's very disturbing. It's shocking that our own government is complicit with this.
We can turn the tables. We can get the foster parents to return the kids, but basically there's money there. They're doing it for money. The volume of foster kids that these people are housing and adopting can go up to like 8. We've heard numbers as high as 8, 11. Way too many in these foster homes. They're allowed to traffic too many. They need places to put them. They're running out of places to put them. There's a national crisis in foster care already, and a lot of it is due to social media. If you're a foster parent and you cross one of our gateways, one of our channels, are part of the network showcasing what's happening, who would want these people in your life? Who would want CPS in your life? Who would want part of that child trafficking organization that it is in your life? And so we are deterring foster parents from becoming foster parents because they're going to be profiled. We're deterring people from becoming social workers. We had the social worker, the GTFO social worker, get 2 million views, telling a social worker, get the hell out of here. You got no legal right. The cops were already here and checked everything. What the hell are you doing here? GTFO off my property. You too, law enforcement. So history's being made, and basically these perpetrators, whether foster parents, social workers, anybody in this industry, they do not want to be tracked. They don't want to be profiled. And that's our ultimate goal and our most valuable tool, because
you also have mylocator.com.
Yes, we do. Yeah, that's for tracking, reconnecting families, tracking. We have Public Locator. That's a national registry for anyone in the child trafficking industry. We have childtraffickingtaskforce.com. We can really, if we work together, because nobody's going to do it on the public service side, anyone in the government. But if we can do it at the grassroots level, we have Amber Alerts going out for kids. One went out in 2 days in a row for the same thing. There's no Amber Alerts for 800 missing foster kids in Los Angeles. But those are the types of things that we want to create and bring in and have control over outside of Facebook, outside of YouTube, where these platforms that are censoring. They're ultimately censoring. So they have a lot of people in fear with the censoring. But things are changing.
I think, though, that's really about sourced material, because there's a lot of anonymous sources that are floating around out there that are, flying these conspiracies to see what sticks on the wall. So I haven't really felt that, I source a lot of my content, so I haven't really felt that as much as other people have. I try to be very conscientious about it. But yeah, it's definitely disturbing and intimidating when you see some of the larger platforms, like 4 of them in 1 week get taken out.
Libertas, they shut their YouTube down with their 70,000 members, the way they're monetizing things. But with free speech, we just want where people can say what they want. Let the court system, that's all there for. And there's already laws in place. But you have to look at who owns FB, who owns YouTube, and they're the most powerful people in the world. And they own both of those, and their agendas are actually together. They're not like separate. Their ultimate agenda to silence the simplest things. People that are just I've seen it on YouTube.
Can you touch on that other story that we talked about with the gang member and the child? And I'm going to step away for just a minute because I have to go use the bathroom.
Got it. I'll go over it right now. Yeah, we have a case coming out of Miami-Dade, Florida. We have a known gang member, what's his name? Low-Key, Lokey. You can find him. Basically, we have a dead 3-year-old girl found dead in a apartment where he was with her, the only one there. Cops picked him up, questioned him, let him go. Now we have signs of trauma. They're looking for him. We understand he's being arrested right now, coming out of Miami-Dade, Florida. This happened on Friday. Very beautiful 3-year-old Skylar Hartley. You can find her on Facebook. Skylar, Skyler, Hartley, being spelled Hartley. You can find her there on Facebook. Death investigation. Okay. But yes, we had the abused child. We have breaking news just came in that they are apprehending the murder suspect as we speak. He's about 20, looks like he's about 22 years old, 24, just a gang member, proud of it, very despicable and vile person. He's being apprehended. We're excited about that, that there's an arrest. But we lost an angel on Friday, an innocent 3-year-old. You can find her on Facebook, Skylar Hartley, Skyler, Hartley, Hartley, murder investigation. And basically she was telling other people around her that this guy hurts her. Not are
you there? Uh-oh. He must be getting another call.
He hurts her. So we want to make sure everybody out there, an awareness campaign that if a child's saying they're being hurt, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. If a child's saying they're being hurt, say something immediately. It doesn't matter. Say something. Record something. Talk to that person that she's saying is hurting them, and you let them know that we are watching you. And if you ever do anything to that child, you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life. And just, we need to let people know that are hurting children that, or possibly that we're watching you. And it may have prevented this from escalating to where it was. But it's when there's that silence, and people don't say nothing, it don't keep these perpetrators on their toes. But you remind anybody who's possibly hurting a child that if we ever find anything, if there's ever anything, that you're going to go to prison for a long time. And Brutus and his Bubba are waiting for you. So we're just excited that this guy is getting off the streets, that he's the monster is being put away, and hopefully he gets his day in there, and that they don't give him the death penalty, because we want him in the main population, where he'll become somebody's girlfriend.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Poor baby. Well, she's with the angels. She's with the angels.
Talking about her last
news. I have good news.
Following.
Some good news now.
Got it.
I am looking for a new show to host on Saturdays in the afternoon, and I was hoping possibly we could go over some of the content that we cover in the network, and maybe lunch with Danny McGowen.
Sure. Yeah, we can experiment with that. Nothing wrong with that. That would be great. Yes, that would be fine.
Awesome.
There's a lot to talk about. I want to remind people, Facebook Live, they have screen sharing. Share more stuff, talk about more stuff, share our content. There's a lot of power out there to communicate like never before. And we're seeing things that we've never seen before, and that's where things change, is in those areas where we're seeing things and witnessing things that we've never seen before, like the viral video, the social worker. Mm-hmm. And we just want to make these people uncomfortable. And if we could do a little show almost maybe every other day, that's even better, because this is such a crisis. There's so much pain and suffering out there that we don't even see. We just see smidgens of it. But we need to have a reason to sit.
I can certainly commit to doing a live with you to cover some of the content maybe later this evening.
Great. Yes, that'll be fine. I'll be here.
All right. Awesome. You know what? Thank you so much for coming on. I have to take a break. And so I'll look forward to having you back on Saturday then.
Great, that'll be a pleasure. Fosterwar.com, Dr. Phil Expo CPS. You can find the bulk of our content there. And contact me for anything, advice. I don't mind using Messenger. It's very efficient. But don't feel free to contact me if you need any tips, advice, or words of encouragement.
Awesome, Danny. Thank you so much. You are really great. The work you're doing is amazing. And, we're in the foxhole. And it is war. It really is. If we can fix this, folks, we can fix a lot of the issues. Thank you for coming on. Everyone, Danny, I will talk to you after the show. I'm going to close out the show with a Zeph Daniels song. And everyone, you can follow me on Spreaker.com. It is absolutely free. You just create an account. It's your name and email. That's it. I am on I have Social Media News Network, where we have a lot of the content creators there that you can interact with, and as well as Porthole to Justice. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And this has been another episode of Porthole to Justice Off the Cuff.
I'm not a doormat, sticking around. You know I'm tin soldier. game. They